Welcome, readers. With me today is Rebecca York. Let's talk. Specifically, let's talk about some of the questions your readers ask you a lot. Do you do your own book covers?
Well, that's one of the things that you hate when you write for a New York publisher. They have complete control over the book cover. I mean, if I had had control of this cover, would I have had a half-naked guy who looks like he's 6 months pregnant? No. And this one, I said, could you please take the hair out of her face? And they said, no, we're not going to do that. That makes it look like it's threatening and the wind is blowing. So I have the hair. Didn't get a choice. But with my indie books, I do. And as you can see, I've sort of copied the look of the New York publisher ones, but I got exactly the picture I wanted and exactly what I wanted to do with this guy on the cover. It was a different picture. In fact, we got it from Jimmy Thomas, who is a really wonderful cover model, and in the picture he was holding a great big gun. But of course a werewolf needs a gun a lot less than most guys. So we took the gun out of the picture, we turned him the other way, and he also had hair dripping in his face. But in this case, we were able to change it because it was my cover and I could do what I wanted. Same with this one. This is Chained, another one of the Decor Security books. And it's Jimmy Thomas again, because he's very photogenic. He's just exactly my type of guy, dark hair, looks really good. And here he is as the ghost. You can see him there and then the ghost in the background.
Cool. Very, very cool. So you've designed those completely yourself?
Well, I had somebody took my concepts and made it work. I don't do Photoshop. I really wish I did, and in my spare time maybe I will take a Photoshop course.
Yes, in the 2 minutes of spare time between 3 and 4 in the morning, right?
Right.
This is the question I know you get, and every writer does. Where do you get your ideas?
Well, you know, it's really funny because I guess a few months ago I was at the doctor's office for a GYN appointment, and I'm sitting there wearing a paper sheet and a paper vest, and the doctor says to me, where do you get your ideas? So he was even thinking about it. And what I tell, you know, I used to give this sarcastic answer, I buy them from a little shop in Ellicott City. But really, if you're a writer, they come to you. They just bombard you. They're always in the air, and anything you see or do or think about, you can use in a book. And that's just how it is. That's part of the way your mind works.
And there's another question that everybody asks a romance writer, though I think they should ask the mainstream and literary types as well. I mean, after all, but do you practice your love scenes?
Right, and I love that question. You know, what I say to them is, well, I also write suspense, and nobody asks me if I practice murder. So I have a very vivid imagination. I can think of ways to murder people, and I can also think of love scenes.
Great. On a more serious note, and this is something you can really speak to given how many books you've written over such a long period of time, how do you sustain a long-term career as a writer?
Well, you know, I think there really are 4 factors. I think it's luck, pluck, talent, and professionalism, and I think you have to have all of those. Now you notice I didn't put talent first. I don't think that that's the most important aspect of it. I think you have to be able to write, you have to work on your craft, but you see things on the New York Times list all the time, and you say, how did that get there? I could do a better job. So it's not necessarily the most talented writers that make it. So what I think is that luck is a big factor in it. If you are at the right place at the right time, if it's what the public wants or what an editor is looking for, you're likely to sell that thing. And I'll give you a good example. One is the Peregrine Connection, which is really the ground floor of modern romantic suspense. And I was right there in on it. And I had come up with an idea for a romantic suspense series, and my agent was sending it out, and it would come back from publishers saying, we love this. But if you put more romance in it, we might buy it. Then it would come back from another publisher and they would say, we love this. Maybe if you put more suspense in it, we would buy it. And so they weren't looking for they couldn't see it exactly, but it turned out that an editor named Lydia Paglio at Dell was looking for exactly that, and she bought it. And that's really the beginning of modern romantic suspense. And I'm very fortunate, very lucky to have gotten in on that. But you have to have the pluck, and what I call that is really two aspects. One is hard work. You have to work at the craft. You have to learn. You have to recognize what you're good at and lean on that, but also do the things that you're not as good at. Learn how to do it. In other words, the thing I'm best at is plotting, coming up with stories and exciting things happening in the book. But I'm not as good at character, and it took me a long time working on it to integrate the plot and character business together and get it to all work. So I think that it's luck, pluck, talent, and then the professionalism, which is when I sold my first book, which was a kid's science fiction novel called Invasion of the Blue Lights, I sent it out myself the way a lot of people do, and I got rejections from people. And there was an editor at Scholastic who held it for 9 months. In fact, it was like I'd call her up every few months and say, have you had a chance to look at my book? And she hadn't. Well, finally she sent it back to me, and she rejected it, but she sent me a 2-page rejection letter, single-spaced, telling me what was wrong with the book. And I knew that was a really good letter. And I knew that the thing for me to do was to do what she said and try to sell it to her. And so I didn't waste any time. I got right on working on it, and I fixed the things she wanted, and I added some more things of my own, and I sold it to her. So I think that if somebody asks you for revisions, you do them, or you discuss it. When you get a little more experience, you can talk about, well, I think this thing works, but maybe this other one doesn't, and they're usually willing to talk to you about it. But I think those 4 factors are the things that you need to do. I could also say you need a specialty. Mine is romantic suspense, and often with paranormal elements, but you have to be able to switch and maybe do something else. Maybe in other words, if romantic suspense completely dries up, okay, I did what I sold to Carina Press, which is the Harlequin E-First publisher, was really historical fantasy, set in a fantasy land, but like a medieval story. Something completely different for me, and I had a wonderful time doing it, and I'd like to do some more of them. So think of yourself as a career person, and I could add one more factor. I really think that the people who get the most work done are the people that outline the stories first. If you can't do it, okay, but it's really a good way to work.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, readers. Signing off.
Thank you.